Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. In this episode, I will be reviewing the SOG Mini Vulcan. I was walking around Dick's Sporting Goods looking for my next EDC knife, and I was trying to narrow it down. And I was, luckily at Dick's Sporting Goods they have all the knives that they have, hanging up also in a glass cabinet where you could go ahead and try them all out. So I was trying them all out, and the SOG Mini Vulcan was there, which was one that I really wasn't too interested in at the moment because of the price, which I'll tell you the price right now. It's $99.99, which is very expensive for me. So anyway, I was going through and trying them, and I couldn't believe how smooth it is. It was so smooth that the only thing that I could compare to it was the CRKT Ripple. How smooth that blade is that you would almost swear it was assisted opening, but it's not. It's just so smooth. So it was a contender before walking out the door. So I continued looking around. A good friend of mine had wandered in. He was looking at some firearms, and he so we were discussing his firearms, and then I was showing him the knife that I was thinking about getting, or the couple of knives, and he goes, "Oh, that one, it's kind of a lot, but hey, it's tip up." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that it was tip up." So that was my pivot point in the purchase. So let's go ahead and crack this open and take a closer look. I want to show you the packaging really quick. If you notice, it's stating that it's VG10 stainless steel. That's a super steel of today at the moment of taping here. This steel is the best steel out of Japan. It's I will talk about that a little bit. It also states that there's a ambidextrous. This knife is totally ambidextrous, by the way. Just so you know, the clip that's on here can go either side, but it's always tip up. It's Gunny approved. I don't know how he feels about these things that he's approving not being made in the USA, which is the next thing I want to talk to you about. With SOG, sometimes it doesn't state where it's made at all, anywhere on the packaging. If that's the case, it's being made in China. Or that should be the assumption. That should be your assumption. This says it's made in Japan. And usually if you have a knife that has VG10, most often that knife is made in Japan because that's Japanese steel. Something that I feel is very important about doing a knife review is first impressions. So I haven't opened this up yet. Now, yeah, I did sort of feel it in the store, but not this one. So every knife is different. I feel first impressions are part of judgment of the knife. So first impression is it's not a light knife for what it is. It's a little hefty. It's actually 3.4 ounces, by the way, and it is a 3-inch blade. So it has some weight to it. Next thing I usually do with the knife right away is check lockup. Alright. And I'm going to go ahead and just unfold it and lock it back. And there is, you probably will not be able to see it on camera, but I feel a very, very slight, ever so slight, up and down and side to side play. I've never met a SOG knife that didn't have play in it out of the box. I don't know what it is with SOGs. I could take away that up and down play by pushing on the lock a little bit, I noticed. So let's snap it out there. That took away the up and down play, unless I really force it, and a little side to side. So I'm going to go ahead and tweak that with, I knew this was coming with a SOG knife, unfortunately. Even, I was kind of hoping that their $100 one, or their $999 one didn't have that, but apparently same issue. They just ship them. Now usually the pivot screw is a T8 for most knives. And apparently this is not a T8, but you should have a full set of torque wrenches. Always on hand. And yeah, I could tell that pivot screw was loose. Okay, that took care of all the side to side. There's still slight. Nope, that took care of the up and down and side to side. So, again, never met a SOG that didn't need some tweaking out of the box on that pivot screw, and this Mini Vulcan is no exception. So, the next impression, again, just like in the store, the smoothness of the knife is incredible. The only other knife that I've ever met out of the box that had this kind of smoothness is my Benchmade Griptilian and the CRKT Ripple, which, you know, they have like some sort of ball bearing system. So absolutely incredible. Yeah, you can see there's a little flipper right here, and if you just sort of press it, it's not going to come all the way out. This is not an assisted opening, so you got to sort of pre-stage that power and use a little wrist action, and you can get it out. And again, I instinctively go for a liner lock because this does have steel liners in it, and they're not hollowed out, they're solid, which is why this thing weighs a lot. It uses this arc lock. Now I'm going to show you how this arc lock works. As you can see this blade, it comes around where, you know, if it were full, the tang would be out here, since but you can actually see it work from the side very well. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this around, and you can watch this pin is being pushed by a spring, and you can see that notch right there, which is the top, and you can see it just sort of slip right in over the top of it, locking that blade in. So you have the blade stop, which is pressing against the top here, pushes up against it and stops it. At the same time, this is sliding in over the top of the tang on the back and locking it in nice and tight. Supposedly 1,000 pounds it's been tested at the lock, not out here at the tip. But again, it's completely ambidextrous, so you have that arc lock on both sides. You have your thumb studs on both sides. Now, in the scales, which are glass reinforced Zytel, there's some detents right here that lead up to the thumb studs. And we'll go ahead and I'll pre-stage a little bit of power behind your finger there and whip it right out. No problem. Good lock up. Again, a little bit of adjustment. The blade is 3 inches long. It has a swedge that comes pretty far back here, as you can see. It is a hollow ground blade that comes about halfway up, so you have a little bit of flat area here. So if you have one of those sharpeners that need to clamp onto the blade, this blade allows a space for you to do that. You see a little bit of thumb ramp here. There's some good jimping. Some people feel that might not be. They wish they had a little bit more of a thumb ramp, but it's adequate for an EDC. Feels good. It sort of continues into the top of the scale here, so almost like a little divot right there, or sort of a semi-choil right up there for your finger to be in. And down here you have a big finger choil, and again there's some jimping that's barely, if I hold it like this, you're not even going to see it. It's in there deep, so you're not going to really feel it unless you're gripping it really hard. It's not even going to be a factor, but the way that this is designed here with both the top and bottom, your hand is not going to slip unless you're incorrectly holding this blade. So again, we're still talking first impressions. I'm going to hold it this way, and it feels pretty comfortable. One thing about these SOG clips, I love them. I love them. That's one of the few features I like about the SOG Flash 2. It has this deep conceal type of clip, and it does stick out a lot. And I do like that it sticks out a lot, but there's some give and take to that. When you're really gripping that knife, it's pressing into your hand because it sticks out away from the scale a lot. However, if you're wearing like thick cloth pants like jeans. As this goes down into your pocket, if you have a clip that's really tight against the scale, it starts pinching really hard right there, so that it makes it hard to get out of your pocket. It's not just holding here, it'll start holding here. Real quick, I'm going to show you why I love these SOG clips. These are jeans, again, thicker material, just like I said, and you can see how nicely it's concealed. And yet, the way that that clip is, you could like just get your finger underneath it. Usually I get this figure. So as I pull it up, because this is tip up, we're ready to go. On this clip, you could remove this torque screw right here, pull this clip out, put it on the other side, and then put the screw back in on the opposite side. And then you can left-hand carry this. So a truly ambidextrous, tip-up only knife. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer and go over some other details. Looking at the back here, you can see there is a back spacer right here, so it's only partially open to get that dirt out. You do have a generous lanyard hole right there, no problem fitting 550 cord through it. This handle is a little bit beefy. I would put it not quite as beefy as the Griptilian, but definitely beefier than, let's say, a Spyderco, like this Delica 4. Now, while I have the Spyderco here, what do these two knives have in common? Well, what they have in common is VG10 steel. That's the best production knife steel from Japan. That G stands for gold. It's the gold standard. You can't do any better. The steel is remarkable. It's considered a modern day super steel. It has some extra stuff in the metallurgy to give it some unique features. They add like cobalt, vanadium, moly, something which I can't pronounce, along with the, your normal chromium and carbon. And what that additional stuff does, like the cobalt, allows the blade to get quenched at a higher temperature. It allows for the actual metal to take an even sharper edge. So this thing could get to a razor sharp edge, and we'll test that out here in a second. The other things that are unique about the steel is it's a lot more corrosion resistant than other steels in its class because of the metallurgy. And it also has a, although it's a pretty tough steel, its hardness is still way up there. Usually as you get harder and harder with your steels, they get a little more brittle, but it's kept its toughness, and they get the usually VG10s between 58 and 61 on the Rockwell scale of hardness. This, by the way, is SOG's version is between 59 and 60. So that's very high, and that usually makes for a brittle, but because of the metallurgy, it's still tough. That's what the documentation says. You bring it out in the field, you break it, don't yell at me. That's what it says. This is a unboxing and first impression review. So that's what this has in common with Spyderco. The grip, by the way, the texture on these scales are really nice. They're really grippy. Feels really good. There's, if you have that death grip on there because you got to stab something, it's not going to slip. That's a really nice. It's aggressive, but not overly aggressive where it's going to scratch the skin off your freaking bones. So, really nice. Let's talk about some gripes about this knife. When you fold it, it does. It's an efficient size handle because you can see there's not much space between the edge of the blade and where everything ends. Some people claim that they could actually, some material could get in there and catch that blade and open it. It feels like it would take a considerable amount of force for it to do that. I'm not feeling the edge of the blade, but whatever it's worth. That was mentioned on YouTube by some folks. I do like that they got rid of the "Hey everybody, I'm a SOG" written on there. I know some SOG blades they put SOG on there. This one didn't. I kind of like this. It's kind of weird that they hollow this out to save weight. It appears they hollowed out this part of the blade to save weight, but they went with solid steel liner. But that definitely makes it for a stronger type of paint. By the way, this is hollow ground. Let's talk about this little choil here. That's really important when you're sharpening your blade. If you're using a stone, usually when you're trying to sharpen this very edge, if that choil wasn't there, you could possibly scratch this part of your knife. Let me get a pointing device here. You could end up scratching this part of your blade right here because you're trying to get this very edge. By putting a choil there, you're saving damage to this part of the blade, and you're also saving the edge of your stode or whatever other sharpening device you're using. This is a drop point blade, even though on the website it says it's a spear point. It's a little subjective. And this is a plain edge with a very slight recurve. I think it's a very nice blade design. 3 inches, perfect EDC that can be pushed into a defensive roll if it has to. It's what I prefer for my EDC. Seki City, Japan. I'll tell you, they definitely know how to make some good knives. If you're a Spyderco fan, especially for the blade material and the quality and workmanship that comes from Seki City, it seems like the companies that are putting these knives together from that area of the world really know their stuff. So I'm very, very impressed by the steel. Oh, and speaking of that, I apologize. We haven't done a cut test. So let's go ahead and see how sharp it is out of the box. It's very sharp. Like I said, VG10 can take an incredible edge because of the metallurgy, and as long as the company does the heat treatment correctly, wow, just I mean, it's just incredible how sharp this is out of the box. Be careful when you unbox this. Is very sharp. So my criticisms is really one of I would have, well, you can't complain. You just gotta make sure that you whip that out. One criticism I noticed on another website, or not a website but a YouTube channel, is that the locking mechanism of this arc lock sticks out a little bit and can catch your pants. I haven't experienced that. So that's one criticism, and the other criticism is the lockup. Unless you make sure that you get it out there with authority, you might sense some up and down play. And again, just like every single SOG I've ever unboxed, you have to tweak the pivot screw just a bit. So make sure you have a full set of Torx with you, because if you're buying one, you're just going to have to suck it up and realize that you're going to have to adjust the SOG out of the box. So if I had to rate this, I'm going to give it a strong 9 out of 10 because it's not perfect, and I'll find criticism in almost everything. It's not completely perfect. If it had a nice hole in it, like this, I love that Spyderco hole. It spoils you. If you ever owned one, when you go back to thumb studs of any sort, you're gonna be like, you just, unfortunately, Benchmade has that hole. So if you try to make a transition. I did notice on the website that there's some new products from SOG. They have a new version of this that has a tinny coating on here, which would make it even more corrosion resistant. So you might want to take a look at that. There's also a version, a Tano style blade version. So if you prefer Tano style blade, there is a Mini Vulcan that comes with that type of blade. And then of course there's the larger Vulcan. Obviously if they're calling this Mini, that means there's something bigger out there with the same name. By the way, Vulcan, that name was not taken from Spock and his nationality, whatever he is, Vulcan. That was taken from a 20mm Gatling gun that are an aircraft that could shoot really fast. So they sort of named it after that gun, by the way. Just another worthless tidbit of information that, and I'm just full of it. So thank you very much for joining me here at the Gear Obsession channel. I again really appreciate y'all coming back and supporting me. Every friend, viewer, and subscriber. I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate the very intelligent comments that 99.9% of you leave it for your other, 10th. I don't know what to tell you, but if you're coming by viewing, that's fine. As far as comments are concerned, I'll never delete, negative comments unless, of course, they're like racist or full of profanity or, something that's really, really, really there. I tend not to mess with comments at all. So, again, appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day or evening or morning or whatever you're watching it. I hope it's great. See ya.